We've known the Broncos' opponents for quite some time, even where the game was going to be played, but now we know the order. We got the when to our story. So before we unveil the entire 2022 schedule for the Broncos, predict their record for me. Let me know what you have them doing this upcoming season. You want to be the 17-0 guy? That's fine. I won't be that guy. But let me know what your record predictions are for the Broncos this year down in the comment section while this intro video rolls. Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson. And coming up on today's show, we're going to check out the entire Broncos 2022 schedule. All 18 weeks, all 17 games. And there's some fun games out there. The NFL scheduling gods blessed the Broncos with a lot of primetime games. And they started things off with a Monday Night Football matchup, Week 1 at Seattle. A huge revenge game as Drew Lock plays his old team. Week 2 is home opener against the Texans. Actually, let me rewind. It's going to be fun for Russ to go play his old team. I personally wish that game was a little later so he could get, a little more accustomed to the playbook. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But home against the Texans, home opener at Mile High. Home on Week 3, Sunday Night Football. So 2 primetime games in the first 3 weeks of the season. Then they go to the Raiders in Week 4. Week 5 is against the Colts on Thursday night, back-to-back primetime. I think it's primetime on Thursday night still, when they play the Chargers in LA in Week 6. Then they've got the Jets in Week 7. The Jags across the pond in London in Week 8. They get a bye after playing in London during Week 9. Week 10, they go to Nashville and take on the Titans. Then they return home for a Week 11 matchup with the Raiders. Back to the East Coast, taking on the Panthers in Week 12 and entering that final stretch of the season. Another road game, back-to-back road games, this time against the Ravens in Baltimore Week 13. Sunday Night Football at home against the Chiefs. They have 2 late games with Kansas City. Week 15 is against Arizona, which is good because that's about the time that Kyler Murray has his meltdown. Week 16 is a Christmas Day matchup at LA against the Rams. Week 17, they go to Kansas City and take on the Chiefs at their place, and they wrap up this season at home against the Chargers in Week 18. So let's break down that schedule and more, but first, help us reach 8,000 subscribers. We're a hair over 100 away, so if you haven't already, I invite you to go ahead and hit that big red button, subscribe, get locked in for Broncos coverage throughout the entire offseason. You're not going to find another account that's posting daily content, 100% free content, news, rumors, and everything above that throughout the entire offseason. Even during the dog days of May, June, and July, we keep you guys covered. Hit that big red button and subscribe. Okay, now that we caught our breath a little bit, let's go a little bit more in depth on some of these games here. So Week 1, at Seattle, Monday Night Football. Going to be a huge game. I also didn't remember the Seahawks somehow scraping their way to 7 wins last season. I thought they were even worse than that. But regardless, I personally wish that the Russell Wilson return home game happened a little later. I mean, that's just for selfish reasons because I'd like to see the Broncos and Russ get, a little more acclimated and Russ gets a little more comfortable with the new team and the new playbook before he has the biggest game of his emotional career. You know what I mean? Not like Super Bowl level big, but the emotions of going back to Seattle. I wish that wasn't his first game for the Broncos. But who do you got in this one? Denver or Seattle? Don't be the guy who puts Seattle. I know a lot of you guys watching were big believers in Drew Lock, and now you're mad at me for saying that, but come on. Let's show number 3 some love. Let's get some DENs going in the comment section. Moving on here as we look at some of the more games on the schedule. Back-to-back, the NFL loved the primetime matchup for the Broncos. That's the Russell Wilson effect right there. Thursday night against the Colts, and then Monday Night Football. So 2 Monday night games within the first 6 weeks of the season. And they had a Sunday night game against the 49ers in Week 3. So lots of early primetime games here. The biggest one of these 4, probably the London matchup. Going across the pond, like I said, to play the Jags, where honestly, Jacksonville may have, there may be more Jags fans in London after playing there so many times than there are at TIAA Bank Stadium, whatever that's called in Jacksonville. But it's going to be a fun matchup. It's going to be an early one. It's also only on ESPN+, so just get it before then if you don't have it already, so that way you're not waking up at 7:15 like, oh my God, how am I going to watch this game? Speaking of the games and betting on the games, make sure you take care of all of your wagers at BetUS. When you go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code Broncos125, you get a 125% deposit bonus. Now, you can't bet on the lines just yet. Some of the week 1 lines have come out, so maybe you can throw some cheddar on the Broncos at Seattle. But what about betting on the AFC West as a whole? I am shocked that Denver is third. I don't really understand what Vegas is thinking by having the Chargers at second ahead of the Broncos. But, hey, free money for us. So plus 250, you bet 100, you win 250. Make all your bets when you go to chatsports.com/bet. Chatsports, promo code Broncos125. Moving on here to the rest of the games as we kind of sink our teeth in the schedule right now. The bye after London, that's how most teams draw it up. Then they've got the Titans, the Raiders, and the Panthers. Titans are an interesting team because every year we don't think they're going to be as good as they actually end up being. This year I really feel like they're not going to be the Titans team that we've seen, beat a bunch of playoff teams like they did last season. But still, it's never an easy quest taking on the Titans. Now, they get a bit of a break there from some of their AFC West opponents, but they have a handful of AFC West games down the stretch at the end of the season. And speaking of the AFC West, which team is the biggest threat to the Broncos for winning the division? Like, the easy answer is the Chiefs, and I'd understand why. But if you want to think a little bit outside the box and go, you know what, they just lost Tyreek Hill. Mahomes looked human at times last season. Maybe you want to talk yourself into the Chargers. I'm not going with the Raiders. I hate the Raiders. But let me know what you think or which team is the biggest threat to the Broncos this season. At Baltimore, week 13. I think when I did my perfect ideal schedule in our last video, I wanted that game to be just after Christmas. Because that way, Lamar fills up on that Christmas dinner and he's got the runs. He's got to go to the bathroom in the middle of the fourth quarter. Fortunately, it comes a little sooner than that. But hey, week 14, home against the Chiefs, Sunday Night Football. I was banging the drum of let's let that be week 1 to get that out of the way a little earlier. But ultimately, Denver has to wait to play probably the biggest game of the season for them until week 14. I love playing the Cardinals late. Cliff Kingsbury and this Arizona Cardinals team are not good at the end of the season. They get off to 6-0 starts, and they end the season 500 or south of it. Final 3 games of the 2022 season at LA on Christmas Day. So you know what? Here's what you get to do. All right, you get to open presents in the morning, but you also get to say, hey, I can't take all the wrapping and trash out until after the Broncos game. You get to delay that aspect of it. Plus, you get to hang out in your pajamas downstairs. You don't have to worry about getting dressed, maybe even going to church. No, you get to sit home and watch football. Week 17 is at Arrowhead. That's going to be tough. I mean, there's really no good time to play at Arrowhead, but I get a little nervous of back-to-back divisional matchups because you feel like those are either going to be 4 losses or 4 wins if they go 2-0 or 0-2, or maybe they split them. But what do you have the Broncos doing in 2022? There's all 18 weeks, 17 games. Predict their record for me. I'm going to go and give my entire game-by-game predictions in our video that will go out tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But we've got some more news to talk about in today's show. Jerry Jeudy was arrested earlier. I hate to kind of end the video on an unfortunate note, but hey, that's part of the gig here, news and rumors, and this is the news aspect of it. So the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office tweeted out saying, professional football player, timeout. Who talks like that? Jerry Jeudy has been arrested by the sheriff's deputies. He's being held at Arapahoe County Jail. Sorry, I'm trying to read the screen here. On charges of second-degree criminal tampering with a domestic violence enhancer, a misdemeanor. That was a lot of, what does that mean in English? He's on no bond hold. He's innocent until proven guilty. So I think all of us spent 30 minutes trying to become lawyers and get our law degree to figure out what does domestic violence enhancer mean. Now, Mike Kliss a couple hours later, and after some more news came out and some clarification, I think this is the best way to digest what all this meant. So Kliss tweeting out at press conference, Arapahoe County Sheriff Tyler Brown said Jerry Jeudy incident involved the mother of his 1-month daughter, thus the domestic violence charge. No physical contact was made. Charge of criminal tampering stemmed from removal of property. So to make that even a little more English for you, because when you see domestic violence, we all go to one place immediately. But Colorado law doesn't go that place. What it means is if you had an altercation where, in this case, he removed property or did not allow the property owner to get to their stuff. So let's just say like it was car keys. I'm not saying it was car keys, but you get the gist here. And you don't let that person get to their stuff. Well, because you have a relationship with that person, which in this case is the mother of his 1-month-old daughter, then it's domestic violence because it's not a random stranger. It's someone who you have a relationship with. Does that make sense? I think that's my best way of interpreting all this. I don't think anything's really going to stem from this. I'm not going to speculate too much on it, but I'm not all that concerned, to be honest with you guys. All right, hit that big red button, subscribe, and I'm going to see you guys tomorrow when I break down every single game on this Broncos schedule and hand out some W's and some L's and see where the Broncos end at the end of the 2022 season. I'll catch up with you later, but until then, go Broncos.